It was a typical morning in Somerset, England. The sun rose through the sheer clouds as the dew formed on the tips of the ever-growing fields. That day was not so typical for my mum and dad, as they had brought me, Luke Eleanor, into the world. I was born into a simple life, unlike most kids that lived in my town. I wasn't a descendant of the royal family, nor did my parents live a very busy life as far as jobs go. Plain and simple, we were poor. I didn't let that stop me, though, because I knew I wanted to achieve greater things by exploring the world and providing for my parents the way they wished they could for me. I did well in school, worked every hour of every day just to keep my family from going under. As soon as I was of age, I was deployed as a soldier in the Irish War, along with every other young man in the region. Being deployed became a huge obstacle in my goal to providing a good life for my family, but I managed to stock them up with enough food to keep them going until I returned. The war was something I will never forget because of the friendships I created. Being kept in close quarters with the same people for that much time, you're bound to become practically brothers. We all understood each other and fought to keep each other alive. Humphrey Lewis became the closest to me because we understood each other the best. We both came from unfortunate backgrounds of little money, yet we both had the goal of bettering our families' lives. The war went on for what felt like forever, and my sixth sense was telling me that my family wasn't doing well, because if I knew that if I just snuck back to be with my family, I wouldn't have been able to provide because the Somerset's resources became scarce ever since they were involved in the war. I figured now was my time to break out and explore the world that I've always wanted. So I confronted Humphrey with my idea and decided that we would sneak out of our base camp and travel to the great land of freedom, America. Breaking out of war isn't exactly as simple as we thought it'd be. There were guards and there were other soldiers. We were informed that the Irish were planning on confronting our territory in a couple of days. Humphrey and I decided the best time to flee camp and begin our voyage would be during all the chaos of battle. During our day trips into the woods for food and resources, Humphrey and I nonchalantly picked up anything we could to build our canoes. We managed to get enough pieces of wood, leaves, and pine straw to build two sturdy canoes for our journey. Sure enough, 2 days later, the Irish bombarded us in the dank of the morning with no warning signals whatsoever. Humphrey and I bolted through the crowd of angry men and headed for the woods. No turning back. We ran our hearts out until we started coming across damp soil and then eventually water. We assembled our canoes then and there, which surprisingly didn't take too long because all the adrenaline that was running through us. Shoving the canoe into the water, we blindly began our journey to America. Using driftwood as paddles, we didn't make much progress on our journey. I knew we were really out in the ocean and past a small river, when all I could see for miles is the dark blue waves swallowing up the sea foam. Directly above us, the sun was shining as bright as ever, but off to the distance I could see the dark clouds beginning to form. We just paddled, moving forward, expecting the storm just to pass by, but as we got closer I could see the rain. Then I could see more waves, bigger waves, gigantic waves. There was no turning back, because we were almost already surrounded by the rain and monstrous waves. The rain became heavier and heavier, until all the sheets of rain blocked my vision, at least 2 inches from front of my face. One of the waves stole my drift paddle wood away from me. As I tried to get it back, I noticed it was not the only thing missing. After calling, shrieking, and crying for him, I had officially lost Humphrey. I realized that not only had I lost again, I'd lost my family, my chances of providing, and my dignity. I knew there was no way out of this situation, so I just decided to let the waves take me in their motions. As I woke up, for some reason, I thought I'd be back in my familiar bed in Somerset, with my parents wishing me good morning. But I kept rubbing my eyes, and I noticed I wasn't in Somerset, nor was I in the water. I was in a sandy shore, what seems like heaven because it was so beautiful. The colors were magnificent. Every shade of blue covered the water. The purest shade of white lined the beach. The land was covered with luscious greens, as well as every flower imaginable. I leapt up and down on the beach, thankful to have ended somewhere so relaxing and wonderful. With my stomach rattling, I realized I hadn't eaten in at least 2 days, so I went and searched for someone to help me. I came across nobody. I came across no one. The island was uninhabited, which could only mean one thing. I had discovered an island. All of these thoughts were racing through my head, with the most significant one being that I could have quite possibly achieved my goal in life. This made me the happiest I'd ever been, and I knew I had to tell someone. I took one last look at the beauty and jump on my raft. I paddled using some branches I found on the island until I could see more land in the distance a couple of days later. I know this land has been discovered already because I see thousands of people lining the beach, tanning and swimming. I arrive on the shore and a huge crowd surrounds me. They're all talking in some foreign language, which gave me even more of a headache after all my days of travel. I managed to put the pieces together and came to the conclusion that I was in Venezuela. I traveled inland until I found some shops and eventually a pier with a sailor gazing out at the sea. Apparently, Venezuela is very advanced because along the pier they had a huge canoe that could hold 8 people. Thankfully, the man spoke English, and he informed me that he was headed back to England that day. As we made the week-long journey back to England, I came to the decision that I needed to speak to Queen Elizabeth in regards to the mysterious paradise. I knew this could be a very beneficial decision not only for my family, but for England, because they would be gaining the property and the land. I arrived back to my home and surprised my parents with my huge story. They helped me conjure up a letter to the Queen, and I sent it with doubts of ever getting a response. About a week later, the Queen sent knights to our home to come to summon me to the castle. She was delighted to hear the news and told me that no one had discovered the island before, and that England now has a right to claim it as theirs. She rewarded me with the fame of discovering that she calls St. John's. She provided me with enough money to keep my parents, me, my future children, their children, and all generations to come. Although I lost a friend in the exploration, I can now say I've accomplished everything and more that I wanted in life.